Shalom, brothers and sisters. Shalom, brothers and sisters. Giving honor and praise to the Creator and the Maker of heaven and earth. My name is Yeshaya Yisrael of the tribe of Dan of the nation of Israel. This particular presentation, brothers and sisters, will be concerning the diaspora of the Israelites with external sources. When I speak on the concept of saying external sources, I am talking in regards to sources outside of the Bible. Now, for those who may know or be familiar, you know that we are already going within the same PowerPoint and breaking it down from one aspect of it to the next and so forth and so on. We want to, in respect, brothers and sisters, take advantage of the fact of this time considered and understood as Black History Month and reach out to our brothers and to our sisters concerning these kind of matters. We do not profess to know everything. Nonetheless, brothers and sisters, we do hope and intend to reach out to our people, and hopefully our people, he and she, will take the time to study the information and draw their own conclusions. In light of that, brothers and sisters, these presentations is not meant to offend. It is not meant to boast oneself up. It is not meant to insult. It is not meant to say one is of pride. But nonetheless, brothers and sisters, it is due to due diligence and study and the gathering of information over the course of some time that we do want to, in respect, present this kind of matter to the brothers and to the sisters. So, without any further ado, let us go on and discuss what we're talking about. The true Israelites were scattered in all directions. The slaves that were brought to America are descendants of those Israelites that were dispersed into Africa many, many years ago, about 2,500 years ago. Now, brothers and sisters, when we say about 2,500 years ago, that is to say, this now being the year 2021. All right. So if you were to take 20 years from this date, you're getting 2001/2020, depending upon what month we're talking about. You understand? So now we're talking all the way to quote the year AD 0, if such a year was. You understand? And then 500 years before that, we're talking during the era of when Persia was ruling with the Medes and what they refer to as the Achaemenid dynasty. There are some brothers and sisters who want to debate the Israelites. And one of the claims that they make is that the Persians are the authors of the Bible, which emphatically is not correct. Another claim that is made against the house of Israel is that the Bible in Genesis is a understanding coming out of Greece, which does not make any sense. Once one knows and understands the Old Testament stands concerning the Greeks and Greek culture, you know good and well, if you study Greek culture and if you understand what happened between the Seleucids and the tribe of Judah, you know good and well, brothers and sisters, that there's no way, shape, form, or fashion that the Bible in Genesis came from that. The first country mentioned, the first places mentioned in Genesis, in its creation story, brothers and sisters, takes you to, all right, the people that were in continental Africa. All right. So this, brothers and sisters, is something that we want to emphasize and point out for edification purposes, if we will. Brothers and sisters, the Bible starts off talking about Hawilah. The Bible, brothers and sisters, gets into talking about the aspect of the people that were in present day Eastern Africa. So, in light of that, there is no way, shape, form, or fashion that the scriptures is of a European concept, if you will. because its origin, its beginning tells you exactly where the author's mind is at in that particular case and in that particular aspect. When the Bible speaks about, for instance, the Ethiopians, the Egyptians, when it speaks about the people, brothers and sisters of Put, when it talks about the people of Sumer, when it talks, brothers and sisters, about the people of Persia, when it talks about the people of Canaan, it does not give a racial epithet or even a racial insult once it comes down into that particular thing. In the Bible, when it speaks about Abram the Chaldean, it says in Genesis chapter 12 that when he went to the land of Canaan, that the Canaanite was there. It does not give the impression that Abraham went to a land and he discovered it, as if to say perhaps there was nobody else there. Such was not the case. So, brothers and sisters, what we want to go over and emphasize in this particular matter is, one, the scriptures lets us know exactly what people is being spoken of. If we were to look at the people today, it would be without a shadow of a doubt what we call people of color, or quote, black people, if we will. Brothers and sisters, the other thing that we want to sit there and emphasize on, that we want to sit there, if we will, and talk about, my brothers and sisters, is that the diaspora of the Israelites, you understand, the people that are the Israelites who migrated as time went on to other places in this earth. We want to emphasize that this has been documented by Arabian scholars, Portuguese scholars, African scholars. So we're dealing, as pointed out, if we will, in the concept in talking about what is referred to as external, meaning that it's not just of the Bible citation, you understand, but also of the citations of other peoples. So without further ado, let's go on. It mentions Cyrene, 125 CE. Israelites attempt to establish a Hebrew African empire. Roman suppression forces further Israelite migrations into Africa. Now, brothers and sisters, you may have heard of what is referred to in history as the Kittos battle. I'm going to write that in the YouTube matter. So let me pull this up. All right. And what we're going to get into in this particular case, brothers and sisters, get into that particular channel on that. The Kittos battle was fought between the Israelites and the people of Rome. The people of Rome, brothers and sisters, as this pointed out, pushed the Israelites further into Africa because they did not want the Israelites to go back into their own land. You understand? And so, with that being the case, let us continue in this particular matter. I just typed in the word there, Kittos, for those who can sit there and see it. All right. Elephantine, 600 BCE. Israelites established a garrison, 70 AD. Romans conquer and enslave over 100,000 Israelites. So what are we talking about, brothers and sisters? Elephantine Island, we're going to show these places on a map, if we will, all right, for understanding purposes, so we can get a geographical understanding of what we're talking about, okay, is in southern Egypt. Then we have Timitit, all right, that place right there, it says 1492 CE, Ottoman Muslims destroy a 1,000-year-old Hebrew settlement. So, brothers and sisters, if we know good and well that Strabo, who was a Greek for all intents and purposes, if he is noted for speaking about the Israelites that were from Cyrene, which is in Libya of today, all the way to the border of Ethiopia, what will be so hard to believe or understand or acknowledge the fact that Israelites would have also been in Algeria, knowing the proximity of the closeness between Libya and Algeria. Let's go on. Ethiopia, 955 BCE. Menelik, the son of Solomon and the queen of Sheba, establishes an Israelite dynasty that lasted almost 3,000 years. Now, I want to take the time out to emphasize on something. The man that is referred to today in many cases as Haile Selassie was born Lige Tofare Mokanen in 1892. His cousin was named Lige Yasu. Lige Yasu, and I'm going to put that inside of the YouTube matter right here, right? Lige Lij Yasu was the son of Zaditu. Zaditu is the daughter of Menelik II. Menelik II in the 19th century in Ethiopia helped modernize, if you want to use that term, Ethiopia. All right, by establishing it and making it more economically based, like railroad tracks, if you will, and so forth and so on. So, brothers and sisters, the image that is shown of Africa in many, many cases, for those who travel, know good and well that that is not the whole scheme and picture of how Africa should be represented. All right, so we want to emphasize that about, in this particular case, the misrepresentation of how they show Africa to be. All right. Now, in light of that, while showing Africa as being misrepresented, you have it to where brothers and sisters, Israelites in Africa are even shown even worse. This kind of information is not talked about in many cases on the highways and byways. So this is why when you find people saying, well, every month is Black History, yeah, that is true. That's not to be denied. You understand? But what we want to point out, we want to, as the Israelites has pointed out on this channel, is respectfully take advantage of the time while our people are listening to Black History. Boom, check this out here so you can come to your own conclusions. Look this information up and fact check it to sit there and see if it can resonate with your spirit. All right, let's go on. Uganda, 9 of 33 kings tracing their lineage to King David. Uganda tradition. Libya, 640 CE. Israelite queen Dia Kahina organizes an army to defend against Roman and Arab incursions into North Africa. Queen Kahina, brothers and sisters, is stated to be a Berber. The Berber people were in Algeria, as well as in Libya, as well as in those places in Northern Africa. So if you know the geography of where the land of Israel is, it is not, brothers and sisters, very far-fetched to know, see, and understand where those other places are. All right. So this is something we want to emphasize and point out for edification purposes, if we will. It goes on to say, Kazembe, all right, 1831, Shemitic Africans whose king wears the Mitri head wrap resembling that of the Israelite high priest. All right. Now, Kazembe, brothers and sisters, in today is in modern Zambia. All right. Then we have number 8 here. Marrakesh, 1000 CE to 1500 CE. Hebrews allowed to practice the Torah. This is during the Islamic period. Now, Marrakesh, brothers and sisters, is in modern day Morocco. Why does that become important with the dating? Because in many cases, a lot of Israelites, and this is no disrespect intended, a lot of Israelites came to this understanding of Israel by reading and being taught out of the standard King James Version, which came out in the 17th century AD or CE. So how then do you have Israelites cited as keeping the ways of the Old Testament? You understand? That predates the timing of them even being brought the King James Bible. That means that there had to already been an understanding of who the Israelites were in order for that to come into place. We have been on this channel discussing the Egyptians and the Israelites, the Ethiopians and the Israelites, the Philistines and the Israelites and the Canaanites, and so forth and so on. We want to, at this time, speak about the diaspora of this particular matter. Tangier, 1150 CE, Israelite sanctuary established by B'nai Musa, sons of Moses. When you go into a book written by this guy here, I'm going to type his name in here, Tudor, right? Prophets. Now, this particular author is a French guy who takes out the time to go from one place in the world to another to talk about the Jews or the Israelites that scattered throughout the world. And in it, he speaks about what is referred to as the sons of Moses. Brothers and sisters, you may have want to look up this as well. This is something that is mentioned about Ethiopia, Sambatyan. All right, Sambatyan, brothers and sisters, is said to be a river that shows the people who are of the priesthood among the so-called Falashas where the Israelites are scattered. And part of where they said the Israelites are scattered, brothers and sisters, is in America. So this understanding is not something that somebody's just making up as a kook off the top of their head. These are things you can look up and check for yourself and see if it resonates with your spirit. All right. Then we have Kimnuria, where it says medieval Hebrew state north of the Senegal River. All right. Kimnuria is also in the vicinity of Mauritania. All right. So these are things that we want to emphasize and talk about for edification purposes. All right. Ghana, 300 CE. Hebrew dynasty established by Za el Yemeni last about 1,000 years, finally known as the Songhai Empire. All right. Now, Za dynasty, brothers and sisters, the author Root of Windsor in his book From Babylon to Timbuktu talks about that. All right. So that's something we want to emphasize and point out for edification purposes. Goes on to say, Lam, 12th century Hebrew kingdom, 200 miles east of Timbuktu, Al Idrisi. Brothers and sisters, the Lam, we're going to sit there and show as these slides go on where we're talking about for reason and purposes. Niger River, circa, or that's to say around the era of 1850 CE, 7 princes descending from the kings of the ancient Israelites. Fetasi tradition. So, brothers and sisters, many people know of this kind of history. This is not something, believe it or not, that is so far-fetched. I want to say shalom to the brother Laban Ben Yeshurun. Shalom, brother. Thank you for the comment in the chat. All right. Let us go on, if we will, to the next part. Cyrene and Elephantine. So what we're seeing right here, brothers and sisters, is Cyrene. All right. So we can see what we're talking about. This is Libya. This is Alexandria here in Egypt. As we see Egypt, Libya, Cyrene. Okay. And Elephantine. Elephantine, we see, brothers and sisters, shown right here. That's in southern Egypt or upper Egypt. All right. For those who care to say Tashmehu, if you will. You understand? So this was lower Egypt. This is upper Egypt. All right. There were Israelites there since the era of Jeremiah, the prophet that you read of in the Bible. So the Bible does give you hints and links on where the Israelites dispersed. All right. Let's go on to the next part, if we will. Here we have Tementit and Ethiopia. Now, Tementit is, as pointed out, in the land of Algeria. And here we have Ethiopia. Gondar is where many Israelites do reside. According to the author, Louis Rappaport, he wrote a book, brothers and sisters, called Last of the Ethiopian Falashas. You understand? Somebody asked me, what's my thoughts on the Elixirics of Baghdad? That was asked by Malak Yakiz Kriya. I'm going to have to say that I never even heard of the Elixirics of Baghdad. So I have no answer on that particular one. All right, so I just want to point that out. Thank you. But if you have information, please share. All right, now, brothers and sisters, when we're looking in this particular matter here, the author Louis Rappaport, he stated in his book, Last of the Ethiopian Falashas, that there are other groups in Ethiopia that lay claim to Israel. It's not only the so-called Falashas in that country that say they descend from the ancient house of Israel. This, brothers and sisters, is by many people who were born not speaking English. So we want to point out that it seems to be that the attack that people care, if you will, to try to make against the house of Israel, when you study a little bit about just something about, quote, Jews in Africa, their whole argument becomes squashed. You understand? Their whole understanding becomes squashed in that particular case. All right? So let us go on, if we will, into this next part. We have Uganda and where Queen Kahina come from, which is in Libya. Now, brothers and sisters, this image you see there on the right-hand side is an image of the black Berber that's in that particular area. And on this side where you see circled, that's Uganda. In this particular case here, there are Israelites all throughout the vicinity of what we're showing: Uganda, Ethiopia, Sudan, Egypt, Libya, Algeria. And then, of course, we already been going over that J.A. Rogers, in his book, 100 Amazing Facts About the Negro, spoke about, quote, West Africa having black Jews as well. All right. So these are things that we want to point out for edification purposes. Now, I'm going to read the comments. The brother who asked me, what are my thoughts on the Alexarics of Baghdad? And I never heard of that. The same person typed in saying they're descendants of King David. That is something that I definitely will not deny. Having never even heard of the Alexarics of Baghdad, that's something. Thank you for that. That's something I could look up and research. I appreciate the comment. You understand? But we do know and understand that the seed in the house of David, in many cases, went into African places. Let's point this out. Did you know that the Philistines were African people? The Philistines like Goliath, the Philistines that went against Saul, the Philistines that had war with King Uzziah of Judah, you know those are African people by default because they come from Kaftor, and Kaftor comes from Mizraim. Mizraim comes from Ham. So if you do the genealogical line, the Philistines, or for all intents and purposes, were Hamites, aka, in today's term, if you will, Africans. Now, why do I point that out about David and Goliath? David fought what we would consider to be today a, quote, African man. See, Israel, we can't sit there and talk about this kind of thing and to separate Africa out of it. You can't. You cannot say in America, basically forget those communities in Africa saying that they claim in the house of Israel. You can't sit there and do that. Because if you're talk about 70 AD, migrating over to Western Africa, the Portuguese, French, Dutch, Spanish, British, and French did not take everybody that was an Israelite over to the Western Hemisphere. Some Israelites were left behind in Africa. So these are things that we want to point out for reference purposes. All right. Now, if we will, brothers and sisters, right? We want to emphasize a particular matter, if we will. David, when he had problems with the Israelites, he went and dealt with the Philistines. When you go into the Bible in 1 Samuel chapter 27, he lived among the Philistines. David lived among Africans. You understand? So why then will it be so hard-fetched to understand that the seed of David will go where other African people are and blend in, knowing good and well that Joseph was thought of as an Egyptian. Moses was thought of as an Egyptian. The Israelites in Genesis 50 was thought of as Egyptians. We already been going over how the people in the time of Josephus said that the Israelites descend from the Egyptians, while Tacitus, another historian, then went over and said that they thought the Jews came out of Ethiopia. So there's not too hard to figure out what we're talking about for evidence purposes. All right, somebody wrote in Cain or Khan, okay? Most of the tribes of Israel went to North Africa, East Africa, and the whole Middle East and Central Asia. Now, let's talk about that as the brother put in there, Central Asia. You ever heard of the people called the Shinlung? Shinlung. Shinlung is a group of people in East India that say they come from the tribe of Joseph in the Bible. Have you ever heard of the B'nai Ephraim, as they were called? Have you ever heard of the B'nai Menashe of East India or the B'nai Ephraim in Afghanistan? These are people that are in the East, as the brother put in by the name of Malak Yakeskriya. If I said your name wrong, please pardon me. Spoke about the whole Middle East and Central Asia. So when the Mosai spoke about the scattering of Israel from one end of the earth to the other, this is a hit that came from the Creator. And so what the Jewish man has to do is try to suppress this and suppress this and suppress this and shush and shush and then come with terms. Oh, when you talk about this, you're anti-Semitic. And listen, we're dealing with whether it's the truth or a lie. These newfound terms such as a bigot or racist and anti-Semitic, we can't deal with that. If you even want to get into Hebrew, there's no Hebrew word for racist. There's a Hebrew word for truth, emet, and there's a Hebrew word for lie. You understand? Shekwer. So, brothers and sisters, we want to sit there and deal with it in that particular matter, not terminology that you can't even translate and or transliterate to the language of Hebrew, the language of the Old Testament. There is no terminology to say anti-Semitic because Shem is how it's said, and Sem, S-E-M, is the Greek transliteration of that. You understand? You could say the prophets were anti-Shemitic if you're talking about they being against the people of Shem who were not living right. But we're not talking about these newfound terms such as being a bigot, such as being, quote, racist, such as being, quote, anti-Semitic. We're talking about aspects of whether it's truth or a lie, whether it can be founded or substantiated, or is it something that's just a popped up idea, such as the term anti-Semitic, which is a popped up idea. You understand? So let us go on, if we will, in this particular aspect. Kazembe / Zambia and Marrakesh. Now, this person right here is a person that is from the Kazembe people as a ruler inside the era of the 18th and into 19th century AD. Now, where we're looking at, brothers and sisters, of Marrakesh is right over here in Morocco. Did you know that there were Israelites in Morocco, brothers and sisters, during that particular era? During the era before 1500 AD, before the era of 1300 AD. Now, why do I emphasize those dates? Because how are these people keeping certain customs before the said Atlantic slave trade, brothers and sisters, and that's before the King James Version of the Bible? Because most of the people who want to come against Israelites say things like, oh, you got it from the King James 16 version. You got it from the KJV 1611 version. But brothers and sisters, we're talking about people who were born never and dying in many cases, never even knowing any English. And by the way, the KJV is not the first English Bible. You understand? So one of the things we want to point out too is when Rome came against Israel from the era of Pompey, when Rome came against Israel in 63 BCE, all the way to the time of Hadrian in 135 AD. We're talking 135, right? And then you got 63. So 5 and 3 is 8, 3 and 6 is 9, 1. You have nearly 198. You have nearly 200 years of the Romans being against the Israelites and attacking and trying to destroy, and attacking and trying to make it Latinized, and attacking and trying to rid the memory of the Israelites. That was the mission of Vespasian and Titus. That's why it's important to understand the Flavian line of this. I want to give a shout out to the brother Sal Showtime, who runs a thing called Debate Talk for You. I remember going on it, and I was speaking about the truth of the Israelites inside a Kemetic society. I could pull that video up and put it in the description of this when this is uploaded. Back in 2015 or 2016, that video was done, right? It was in February of 2016, if I remember right. Nonetheless, it's still online. Somebody called in and asked me about the temple that Solomon built, and where was it? It's destroyed. I was asked when I was on Debate Talk for You, which is ran by the brother Sal Showtime. Much respect to him as a brother. Much respect to him as a brother who came out and bought and supported my books. I want to state that when they're asking questions like, where is Solomon's temple? Where is Aaron's rod? And so forth and so on. These people are looking for artifacts and not trying to even understand why their said scholar, Dr. Yosef Ben Yochanan, who did not really like the Bible, kept a Hebrew name. Yosef Ben Yochanan, otherwise known as Dr. Ben, he stated in a presentation that he came from the so-called Falashas, the Beta Yisrael people. But you know what? You don't get a lot of popularity teaching about us being the people of the Most High. You understand? And I say this in no disrespect, just as much as you had the mixed multitude in the wilderness in the book of Numbers, chapter 11, and just like you had the other Shemitic and even Hamitic nations that went to King Darius to try to make sure the second temple was not going to be built, there are going to be people who's going to try to stop the progress of the house of Israel. Just can't let that be. You understand? So, brothers and sisters, this is something we want to point out for evidence purposes. All right, somebody typed in Cain, many Israeli brothers are in India. Did you know that the Israelites in India are not allowed to bury their dead with the native or indigenous Indian population in East India? They separate the burial between the Israelites in India and the people in India that's not of the house of Israel. The Israelites can't bury their dead with the other Indians, if you will, or the Indians that's of that country by law. All right. And so let's go on to the next part. The concept of race didn't exist even in those days. And anti-Semitic is a 19th century creation, as I think pointed out Moray. Okay. Somebody wrote in crypto Jews. Now, the brother Ariah Ben Yisrael wrote crypto Jews. Now, correct me if I'm wrong in this, right? But when you talk about crypto Jews, is that the European Jews that act like to be Christians, like Aaron Lopez did in the slave trade, when they sit there and take their said Israeli or Hebrew name and get a Christian name, such as Lopez, which is straight European for that intents and purposes, so they can continue to do whatever they want to do and then not have to be classified as a Jew in doing so? Enlighten me if that's what you mean when you speak of crypto Jews. All right, because I know crypto Judaism is when they go undercover or incognito instead of claiming the people from the Khazars who are converts to the religion of Judaism, and they act like the regular European, if you will. All right, so somebody wrote in my mother's family. Oh, okay, Cain Mishnah Negaim or Negaim 2:1 says the ancient Israelites were neither black or white, but an intermediate shade of in between of boxwood. All right, let's look at this. When the statement is saying about the Israelites were neither black nor white, for those who may have seen me, I'm what you call brown skin, but I'm still called black. My mother, may she rest in peace, is what you call light skin. You understand? But she's still called black. So the terminology black, we understand that's something that can be thrown around based upon what one cares to sit there and classify it as to be. All right. So, but I do thank you for the comment in that particular case. All right. Crypto, the brother wrote in and said they are of Morocco. All right. Thank you for that. Then Laban ben Yashurin wrote at Malakia Keskriya, Mishnah. All right, we're gonna move on from that. And then somebody wrote in that, all right, let me state this. I am, and it's not about me, but I want to state my stance. I do not subscribe to the Talmud. I do not subscribe thus to what's in the Talmud, such as the Mishnah and the Gemara, comprising together make the Talmud. I am what you call an Old Testament brother. I do not subscribe to the writings of the New Testament. I am not one of the Israelites who claim Muhammad was one of the prophets to come. So thus I do not subscribe to the Quran. I do not subscribe brothers and sisters, and I say this in no disrespect intended, you understand, I do not subscribe to the teachings of those things outside of some parts of the Apocrypha that came up after 70 AD. Because when we start to understand that when Israel was freed out of the bondage in Egypt is when the Most High gave them the Torah. The only book Joshua, the son of Nun, had was the Torah. You understand? And so with that being the case, and if all of those books tell you to go back to the Torah, that is what we need to have our base on in the first place. Everything else is secondary. Every other doctrine is secondary, from the Apocrypha to Joshua to the book of Enoch and so forth and so on. Even Josephus, all of those things are secondary or not primary once it comes down to the Torah itself. So we just want to emphasize that for edification purposes. All right. Now let's go on, if we will, in this particular case, Tangier and Lam Lam. Now, Tangier, as we can see, is also in Morocco, which is by Algeria. Now, that is in Western or Northwestern Africa. Brothers and sisters, remember we're speaking about the Lam Lam or the Lem Lem in here? What does it say? Brothers and sisters, was Jews right here, as pointed out in this particular part. What we're going to do is make that, if we will, pardon me, we're going to sit there and show that a little bigger. All right. So we can sit there and emphasize what we're talking about. All right. I want to sit there and do this. Pardon that. We have this. It says, according to Al-Risi, this dating to the 12th century, the land hereabouts was populated by Jews. And as we can see here, it says Lam Lam, kingdom of Cassina or Cassena, right? And then we have Wangera. From hence are brought gold slaves, the Gold Coast aspect. That takes you into Ghana, brothers and sisters, the Gold Coast and so on. All right. So these are things that we want to talk about for edification purposes. All right. So let me ask a question to the brother Malaki Keskia. All right. A Cariite, I only for the Tanakh as divine scripture. All right. Thank you for that. Most crypto Jews are Jews who were from Spain that converted to Catholicism during the Inquisition. Now, let me ask a question, as I've read on that as well, right? Let me ask a question. These crypto Jews that converted to Catholicism, were they sitting with the Catholic Church when Pope John Paul and King John Paul of Portugal was involved in the slave trade of the said now current African American? Were these crypto Jews part of and cahoots with they who were part of the Atlantic slave trade? See, this is why I'm asking for edification purposes, because one of the things, and I say this in no disrespect, that the European Jews, who in many cases call themselves Ashkenazi, right? What many of them state is that they've always kept the laws, as they say, the laws of Hashem, right? All right, somebody wrote in Laban Ben Yeshurun wrote Khan, which means yes, Moray. Adon Yehu Ben Larry, Shalom Moray, Baruch Hashem, glad to catch you. Shalom to you too. All right, and shalom to Omar Rashad Yehuda. All right, so let me ask, are these Karaite, not the Karaite, sorry, are these crypto Jews, were they later on part of the crew with Aaron Lopez, who was Jewish, that followed crypto Judaism, that was participants in the Atlantic slave trade? Because one of the things they try to come when they talk about the quote Black Hebrew Israelites, like the Israelite camps that sprung up out of inside the United States, for instance, is well, the African people that y'all keep talking about was worshiping bulls and worshiping animals and so forth. But so was Jeroboam, the son of Nebat, of the tribe of Ephraim. So were Levites in the wilderness. They was worshiping the golden calf. So when the argument against us as Israel that I have heard come from people saying, well, how long have you kept the Torah? That's not the question up to par, because Ecclesiastes 7 verse 20 says there's not a man that doeth good and sins not. So nobody's perfect. So to try to throw in somebody, not saying anybody in the chat here is, but as many like Ashkenazi or so Jewish people do, they try to throw it up in somebody's face how long they've been doing something. That doesn't mean a hill of beans. Because if you're truly doing it, then you don't have to tell somebody, because that's between you and Hashem, as they say at that particular case. But because you know that it speaks of Deuteronomy 28 in the seed of aspect, that changes a lot. All right. All right. Somebody wrote in, actually, the Mishnah is older. It started under the Hasmonean dynasty with the Pharisees. Correct. It did. The Mishnah and the Gemara together. The Mishnah, correct me if I'm wrong, is about the sages that spoke about the aspect in their understanding of the Torah and was giving you their understanding and thesis of what they read in the Torah. And then the Gemara is people's thesis and understanding of what was being stated in the Mishnah. But if these books are telling people to go back to the Torah, which was, as it says in Deuteronomy 32, Deuteronomy 33, that the prophet Moses, that the Most High came with a fiery law. That is what we are to and have to go to. All right. Somebody wrote in, don't want to sidetrack the presentation, but no evidence of a Mishnah before 3rd century AD. They are inspired by Hasmonean / Herodian era Pharisees, though. All right. Let me try to point this out here, brothers and sisters, while we're on this. And I appreciate the people in the comments. There is evidence of the Mishnah before the 3rd century AD. I, as stated, do not subscribe, say to like the New Testament. I do not say that Jesus or Yeshua is my Lord and Savior. All right. So once it comes down to that, but did you know that many of the arguments in the New Testament is between what you see in the Mishnah and what you see in the Gospels? A lot of those arguments really is between that in certain cases. You understand? So there is evidence, even if it wasn't codified or even put together in a formatted written form, but there is evidence of the Mishnah before the 3rd century AD. All right. They are inspired by the Hasmonean / Herodian era. Now, that's the Hasmoneans are the descendants of the Maccabees. The Herodian people are descendants of the Edomites. So after you have Matithya Maccabee or Matthias Maccabeus, then you have Simon Maccabeus, you have Judas Maccabeus, John Maccabeus, Eleazar Maccabeus. Then you eventually have John Hyrcanus, the son of Simon Maccabeus, the grandson of Matithya Maccabeus. You understand? And then that right there is when you get into the aspect, brothers and sisters, of the Hasmonean era. The brother Adon Yehu ben Levi wrote 69 books together. Cain, 6 Mishnah, Gemara, 63, I believe. Okay, now I do know and understand that, brothers and sisters, like I cite Root of Windsor. I understand Root of Windsor in his book spoke about the Mishnah and its usage. You understand? And so I'm not trying to sit there and say, forget other books such as that. I'm just wanting to state what the point and premise of what I'm presenting in the channel. Once it comes down into that particular thing. Hopefully that's understood in that particular manner. Now let's look at this here. We have the Niger River map. Now in the book Hebrewisms of West Africa, the subtitle is From the Nile to the Niger with the Jews. Now, brothers and sisters, right? For those who are familiar and for those who know, right? Not on this presentation, sorry. You know that Elephantine, right, is by the Nile. So you had Israelites in Elephantine, and then we've been pointing out about Israelites up and around the area of Western Africa. So these are things we want to emphasize and point out for reason and purposes. What do we want to say in closing out this particular presentation? Israel is scattered. You understand? Not all Israelites on earth use Deuteronomy, the 28th chapter, as their source of evidence. Take the Bantu people that say they come out of the tribe of Judah in Africa. That was not introduced, say, to the King James Bible. They have an oral tradition of them being the Israelites. I remember speaking with a person from the Ga people live in like the area of Togo, the area of Ghana, and they state that their ancestors come out of the land of Israel. We pointed this out in the past. Now, you have, as in Israel, a mixed multitude. So you're going to have some that are Hamites, brothers and sisters, that are among and in those other tribes as well. There is a sister that I knew who confided, if you want to use the term, or she confirmed, let me say that the Ewe people, the people whose names are spelled like this, right? E-W-E, that many of them, when the slave trade done happened, they already winded up migrating as Hamites to replace the Israelites that was already there. Did you know, brothers and sisters, that during the Atlantic slave trade, that they used to break off in the ships their chains and sit there and attack the Europeans who were on the ship? And then, as Daniel P. Mannix pointed out in his book, Black Cargoes, indigenous Africans will recapture the people and then sell them. The Hamite people doing the selling knew who they were selling in the Atlantic slave trade. That's something we want to point out. The Moors that were expelled from Spain, brothers and sisters, in 1492, winded up breaking down the Songhai Empire by 1591 and participated with the Futa Jalon and the Futa Toro and the people called the Vai in the slave trade. So you had the Futa Jalon, Futa Jalon, the Vai, and Moors that were participants in selling our ancestors to the Europeans in slavery. So these are things that we want to point out. So we might want to sit back and ask, when people ask us as Israelites, do you happen to have any records from the slave ship? And I don't mean to be a clown in saying this. I will ask you, do you remember the number of the bus or the train that you was on? Because all the buses and trains have a number to it. We're talking about a people who was transported from one end of the world to the other and being naked and torn away from their families. And you're going to ask their descendants about where is the record of the slave ship. You will not fix your mouth to ask the Chinese about the record of the slave ships that the Japanese used. You will not fix your mouth to ask brothers and sisters, where are the slave ships? Or do you happen to have the record of the slave ships when the Turks took over Russia during the era of the Ottoman era with Suleiman? Ask them that as you ask the quote unquote Black American who just began to read English less than 200 years ago. Did you know that? Because remember, reading was a crime. Did you know you had Black people inside the Civil War era that could not know how to read? So how then, brothers and sisters, do we sit there and fix our mouths to ask one another, well, do you happen to have a record of the slave ship then? But you would never sit there and ask the other people who were transported by ships about the record and the name for that. And there's a reason for that, as we've been pointing out, to cut the name of Israel off, that the name of Israel may be no more in remembrance. Because when you say it, Israel, then you got to sit there and have a responsibility that goes along with it. So to avoid having to deal with that responsibility, all you got to do is just sit there and say, hey, I'm indigenous to here. Hey, I'm a Black African. You can sit there and claim colors and continents when you don't want to sit there and pinpoint a particular people, because then you got to pinpoint a particular culture. And many are not trying to give up that Saturday, the Shabbat. Many are not trying to change their diet for 1 week during the Feast of Unleavened Bread. One is not, many are not trying to look at, in many cases, their inner self on the 10th day of the 7th month on the Day of Atonement or the Day of Yom Kippur. See, these other doctrines and these other ideologies and these other identities that recently came up, say within the last 20 or 30 years, from African American to saying, forget Africa, we're just American. There's no language, land, culture, or substance into that. These are things we want to point out for edification purposes. Now, somebody wrote in, Jewish Virtual Library says Israelites were sold from Igbo land. Igbo land, brothers and sisters, correct me if I'm wrong, is in Nigeria. Did you know there were Igbo people taken to Georgia, the state of Georgia? Earlier today on Facebook, having been in Georgia last year, I remember saying I missed the South, once it comes down to that. Okay, the best source for the Israelite tribes going into West Africa is Eldad the Danite. All right, Eldad the Danite, I mentioned him in my book. He's also mentioned in a book from Babylon and Timbuktu. Eldad the Danite was a person in the 9th century that came out of Algeria that stated that the tribes of Dan, Naphtali, Gad, and Asher went over to Northern Africa and migrated to Western Africa, and that later on the tribes of Judah, Simeon, Levi joined on with them. That's the claim in a statement made by Eldad the Danite. And I do thank the brother Malak Yakeshkia for mentioning that. Thank you for that inside of the comment. So let's go on, if you will, to the next part. Advertisements for sisters who are good in business. Now, many of my book covers was made by this sister here, Fab Aim Edits. All right, you can sit there, and that's her name on Facebook, Fab Aim Edits. We're talking about editing videos, making all kinds of stuff, flyers, and so forth and so on. So definitely check that sister out once it comes down to that work. You can send her an inbox on Facebook by the name Fab Aim Edits. Then we have here on the left side, the light, your ad here. This is operated by some people that I know in another state, right? You can contact us, Brew News Magazine at yahoo.com. I'm going to write each of that in here. All right, you have Fab Aim right on Facebook. Then we have, brothers and sisters, Brew News Magazine at yahoo.com. Right? You can sit there and go into that, and they will advertise your products in their monthly magazine. I've been advertised in that magazine a couple of times. They do quality work, as both do there. Okay, next we have here, the sister Fab Aim Edits actually did these flyers here. All right, Shalom. The book Israelite History as it relates to the world goes over the stuff that we talked about. The chapters is Israelite history as it relates to the world, presented to you in love and respect. All right, the contents of the table of contents, that is Israelites and archaeology, the book of Exodus 1 through 15. Hebrew presents Black history, Diaspora of the Israelites. You may want to check out that chapter. Teaching on Black history, a timeline for those interested. Then the appendix, Israel from Assyria to America, appendix 2, Egypt by ships. Now, when I talked about appendix 2, Egypt by ships, I get into the Hebrew, similar to giving a shout out to the brother Zion Lex. He did a presentation recently on the Hebrew of Deuteronomy 28, verse 68. Excellent presentation. Excellent. That was just done yesterday, by the way. All right. In that book there, when I spoke about the appendix, I'll go into the word Mizraim, Zor, from the word Zur, from the word Zor, stress, distress, enemy, adversary, the prefix of the letter mem, the misayim, the ayim showing it to be a dual plural. That's what I talk about in that chapter there. And I show how the word zur, which is an ayin waw verb, meaning that the waw is the second letter of that root, and how tazur means to sit there and besiege. which is the future tense, by putting the prefix of the letter tau. That gets into that in the Hebraic matter. Then this book here, all right, from Assyria to America, giving thanks unto the Most High for all the publications coming out. I believe this is the best book I wrote so far. And I must say that even as the author of it. I believe this so far is the best book that I wrote so far. Let's look at the table of contents. From Egypt to America, from Avaris to Alabama. Avaris is in ancient Egypt. Alabama, we know where that's at. The Romans, did you know, by the way, that Alabama was a tribe? That Alabama was a tribe in Texas, but then the state of Alabama was named after a tribe that was in Texas. Okay. The Romans and the Israelites. Now that gets into your man Claudius, Nero, Vespasian, later on Hadrian, and of course your homeboy Titus. All right. Then it goes how to teach Deuteronomy 28, showing aspects of the Hebrew dictionary, Hebrew lexicon, and how that proves lingually of language what we've been talking about for a minute. All right. Then the book goes from Ghana to Georgia, from Dahomey to Delaware, from Nigeria to Niagara, from Madagascar to Manhattan. I believe, brothers and sisters, that that book right there is the best book that I wrote. And I say that being an author, thinking the most high of 12 books, of the 12, that one I think is the best. Because it gives you history, Hebrew, timeline, dates, pictures, references, and all kinds of matters in that particular aspect. That book, brothers and sisters, is over 300 pages. And I made sure that the font in the book is of a certain length, so that way people can sit there and see it clearly, if we will. All right. So this book here, these two that you see, is on Amazon for $15 each. With everything going on, people waiting for a stimulus check, I lowered the price of the book just as much as for those who know New York. Did you know that the Long Island Railroad doesn't do their peak prices? Do you know that the airlines lower their prices? This is the time that we're living in, brothers and sisters. So I just wanted to cooperate in that particular manner. I lowered the price of these books from 20 to 15 on Amazon. All right. Next week, going to go into the next part, if we will. All right. From reading to speaking Hebrew tutorial classes for those who are interested, brothers and sisters, in regarding the aspect. I do not teach to tutor or teach in Hebrew. I do hope that if I have to travel to you, I do ask for a donation for part of the traveling time. You understand? But the actual class, I do not charge for that. What I do ask is that you patronize by buying the book Hebrew is Easy, Volume 1. Now, as I stated, I believe the book From Assyria to America is the best book that I wrote of the 12. But of all the Hebrew books, I believe Hebrew is Easy Part 1 is the easiest and the best. All right. Care to learn Hebrew from a Hebrew? Look no further. All right. I have sat under great teachers in the house of Israel regarding Hebrew. So we want to sit there and give this back out to the people for edification purposes. All right. All right. Somebody wrote, is it okay if the brother Dora Yahu is asking, if I can send a manuscript that I am working for Second Temple history to get your valuable input before I put it in book form? Yes, you can. And my email, if you're interested, is yyisrael22@yahoo.com. All right. So if anyone cares to email me, can definitely get into that. And I thank the sister Kamela Yisrael for typing in great book. Thank you for that. I don't know what book you're talking about, but I thank you for the compliment. All right. And so, brothers and sisters, it goes on to say, you will be taught how to identify the alphabet characters and vowels, identify a noun, verb, and an adjective. All right. And so These are things for edification purposes. Somebody just typed in Hebrew is worth learning. It's the language of creation. Did you know that the letter Hey in Hebrew is a feminine letter, and the causative in Hebrew is in the feminine nature in Hebrew? You cannot get some of the verb stems without the letter Hey. And the letter Hey, all right, is a feminine letter in Hebrew. There are two Hebrew letters that are of the feminine. That is the letter Hey and the letter Tau. Do you know the letter Hey means behold? The word Hey, the letter, the fifth letter of Hebrew alphabet, Hey means behold. Many times we say Hine for behold, but the word Hey too also means behold. All right. So we want to point that out for reason and purposes. By the end of 3 months of diligent classes, you will go from knowing how to read to speak Hebrew, our language. All right. That is the goal in that. So knowing how to speak Hebrew, brothers and sisters, and it is not difficult, it's just different. All right, so here's the other book, From Assyria to America. All right, it says the table of contents, the matter of 1619. Israel, stop giving people a false hope saying, well, 2019 or 2020, we're going to see deliverance. Don't do that. Do not do that. Don't try to equate the 400-year count in the time of Genesis 15 to sit there and say is according to the Anno Domini, where July and August was stuffed in there, and this is why September was originally the 7th month. Octo in Greek means 8, the number 8. You understand? In November, the NOV, correct me if I'm wrong, from the Latin means 9, and DEC in December was originally 10. That's why decade is 10. That's why decimal is a tenth of something. So we can't use that timeline to try to figure out Genesis chapter 15, because brothers and sisters, the first slave ship recorded wasn't 1619. It was 1526. So brothers and sisters, we want to point that out for reason and purposes. All right. The matter with Egypt. Now, in that particular chapter, what I did was show, and it says Egypt again by ships, how America copycat, you might say, the culture of the Egyptians, and how we, Israel, got to do better because we don't want to go into the ways of Egypt, because Ezekiel 20 tells us not to do such. You understand? Why do you think Egypt is praised so much in America, but yet they hate Africa as a whole? Because there was a certain culture, for instance, what they call the cult of Isis, that went from Egypt and went all the way as far as Britain and was practiced by the people called the Druids. The people of the Druids, eventually, these English people colonized America. You understand? So, brothers and sisters, looking at it like that, you can see why they praise Egypt so much. The pyramids, this and the pyramids, that. These people, the Europeans, done cut off the nose of the Sphinx in Egypt, but then sit there and tell us that the pyramids were the best thing. Oh no, you're trying to lead me to something that's of a different kind of nature. In that book, whether people say the earth is flat or the earth is round, every pyramid, because a lot of people are saying that we built the pyramids, and Israelites in part did build some, but all the pyramids, be it the pyramids in Ethiopia, Sudan, Egypt, be it the oldest pyramid in Guatemala, be it the pyramids in Japan, Indonesia, brothers and sisters, all of them are on the earth that Yah made. Every pyramid sits on the earth that the Creator made. Now, if you got the power to sit there, and as it says in Job chapter 26, he causes the earth to stand on nothing, then yeah, then we can talk. I've been on an airplane. I remember looking down and seeing like, oh snap, that's people. You understand? Now that's power. And when you can make a thing of fire referred to today as the sun, and you just stay right there. When you make a thing referred today now as the moon, and you just stay right there. Brothers and sisters, that's power. So when you ask us, well, the Bible doesn't talk about how the pyramids were built. It doesn't have to. The Bible talks about who created the earth and caused it to stand on nothing and caused vegetation to come up out of it and man to come up out of it. Now that's power right there. In Job 26, it says that the Most High who created the earth, whether you say it's the earth is the shape of a globe or whether you say the earth is flat, that's not the main argument, right? It's everything that's created. You ain't make nothing new under the sun. This man and his wickedness and this New Age movement. I talked about the New Age movement in that book about the chapter on Egypt because, brothers and sisters, ancient Egypt had hermaphrodite gods. Did you know that? Did you know that Biden, one of the things that he said he want to get into is for the transgender community? Sir, you walked into a pandemic, a crisis of health, and your main concern is about people and helping people who are transgender. Your priorities, Mr. Biden, are off. You understand? Ancient Egypt had a concept, brothers and sisters, that was not that far-fetched from the Baphomet, which was androgynous, both male and female, hermaphrodite gods, like the Egyptian god Hapi, which is shown with a male having a beard but feminine breasts, just like they do in Atlanta with the cross-gender community there, and promote that there. This is why the culture of Egypt is praised in America, but while Egypt is in Africa, brothers and sisters, Africa itself is despised by America. They are linking it to their spiritual, cultural, not lingual per se, not even seed line, because the Egyptians were black. The Americans who have founded America were not black. So it's not even a matter of race so much as it is the identification of wickedness. So that's something we want to point out, brothers and sisters. Did you know, as pointed out in the book that I wrote, Egypt Talking Writing, right? Which we're going to get into in a second. Just as much as they sick black, they sick dogs on black people, so does King Tutankhamun show the dogs being used to attack the Kushite people. They memorialize black people being attacked in ancient Egypt or other black people being attacked, just like America does. And then wash their hands like what? What we do? We ain't doing nothing wrong. That's that mindset. You understand? So this is something that we want to point out for reason and purposes, right? Now, the matter with the Edomites. Okay. Brothers and sisters, I'm going to just say this, not trying to give out all the stuff in the book. There's a tribe called Edo in Nigeria that say they Edom. They as black as Wesley Snipes. There's a tribe in Nigeria that's called Edo, not Igbo, IBO, and they are black as Wesley Snipes. And they say they're the people of Edom. Did you know that? Then there's the claim that many Israelites make that the white people in general is Esau. Then there's some saying it's the Arabs who's really Esau. But in that chapter there, I explained the point that I was trying to bring out, just leaving it at that for those who care to read it. From Assyria to America, part 2, which gets into a lot of the pictures showing archaeology of Israel throughout history, okay? The matter of history and pictures is like a part 2 to that chapter. All right. So if anyone cares to get that book, From Assyria to America, part 2, you see the chapter From Assyria to America, part 2. That chapter and the chapter beneath it or next to it, the matter of history and pictures, is like a 1-2 part. You'll see it if you ever get the book. And I do hope people do patronize. The sister Camilla stated Hebrews Easy 1 and 2. Praise Yah. Yah gets the glory. Thank you for that. Hebrews Easy Volume 1. I wrote that when I was in North Carolina. All right. In quietness and in peace. In Greensboro, a place in North Carolina. But let's go on, if we will. The holy name. I wrote that in there because Brothers and sisters, I will just point this out here. Ahaya is not the holy name. Ehye, Ashir Ehye, which in Hebrew means I will be that which I will be. The Most High never said that was his name. That's why we got to learn Hebrew, because he said his name, which is shame in Hebrew. Name, shame means name, fame, and renown. And he said that is to be the Elohe Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yah, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob throughout from generation to generation. When Moses in Exodus chapter 3 said, "What is thy name?" He never said, "My name is Eye or Ahaya." He never said that. He said that his name, which is his fame, is that he's the power or the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob from generation to generation. So that gets into that particular aspect from a lingual and Hebrew case as well. The tribe of Dan. The tribe of Dan is not destroyed. The 12 tribe chart that goes out among many cases, a lot of the Israelites from Africa are offended by that because it doesn't seem to include them. Okay, but in many of those charts, brothers and sisters, the tribe of Dan isn't even on it. But the tribe of Dan is still in existence. We've gone over that before. All right. From Angola to Arkansas. Now, if you look at, brothers and sisters, this here, right? And it says, right, from Ghana to Georgia, from Dahomey to Delaware, from Nigeria to Niagara, from Madagascar to Manhattan. I continue told out to the Most High, thinking the Most High, in the same vein, saying from Angola to Arkansas. Angola, brothers and sisters, is in Africa. Arkansas is in America. Did you know Arkansas was a slave state? Yeah, Arkansas was a slave state too. Okay, and why is Mizraim not Egypt in translation? Now that gets into Metuneta of the Egyptian, that gets into the Hebrew in that particular case and explaining that particular matter. We have here Hebrew is Easy, Volume 6. All right. As pointed out before, the lady you see there is not my Isha or my wife. Sorry to have to say. May she rest in peace, my mother. All right. And I want to take, not being sentimental or so, when my mother passed away in 2004, it became a thing of having to pick up the baton to continue learning and continue teaching. You understand? Because the Mosai took his daughter, that doesn't mean that the mission stops. How are you honoring your mother by being so distraught to where you stop doing the mission that you've been on? That's not honoring them. We don't do, sadly, no disrespect, because I know losing my mother, you understand, is a very harsh thing. But if you have any respect and honor for them, you continue doing what they would have wanted you to do in the name of the Most High anyway. All right. And so that book is dedicated to her. I talk about how she was a teacher to me, and I get into the lingual matter of her name and so forth and so on for those interested. All right. Hebrew is Easy, Volume 5. This gets into Exodus 20 verbatim, breaking it down or expounding upon it. Pardon me. I was advised never to say break it down. Excuse me. Explaining, not break down, but explaining the matter for edification purposes. Let us talk to one another. As we pointed out, brothers and sisters, right? In this flyer, we want to show Hebrew, all right, for people to communicate one with another. And that's what this book here gets into. The regular common statements that's made and conversing is what that book talks about. All right. Then we have here Hebrew is Easy, Volume 4. Now, this cover was made by the sister Fab Aim Edits, whose information I gave earlier. It's right here, Fab Aim Edits. You can see what this is right here. She's the one who made the cover you see right here. All right. Very good work, as you can see. All right. Then we have Hebrew is Easy, Volume 3. Now, in 4, I get into the nouns. That is to say the possession of it. Feminine noun, plural. Masculine noun, plural. How do you say my child, my female child, our female children, our male children? and how the grammar works in that particular case. That's what this book, for instance, gets into. And this book right here, brothers and sisters, Hebrew is Easy, Volume 3. This cover was made by the brother Chief Naphtali Dan that attends the congregation as a teacher there in the congregation DCB. All right, that's the congregation. You may want to subscribe to that channel, the DCB channel on YouTube. There's a brother there, Chief Naphtali Dan. He's the one who made this cover. All right, for reason and purposes. The voice cries out the easiness of the qual. The qual stem, brothers and sisters, is the first stem. The word qual means easy, and so forth. That's why I call these books here Hebrew is easy. All right. Anybody saying Hebrew is difficult? No, it's not. My advice: how do you quickly learn Hebrew? Is to learn the words that you use in English all the time, and that vocabulary will sink to you better because that's what you're always talking about. So if you like to drive, your vocabulary in Hebrew would be car, drive, road. Then you will learn I drove on the road. I will drive on the road. I will drive you on the road. I was driven on the road. While I was driving on the road, I stopped at the store. All of those vocabulary and grammar and sentences will come into place because it's something already you into. If you're into music, you understand? You want to know the word for beat, music, drum, play, so forth and so on. All right. So let's go on, if we will. Hebrew is Easy, Volume 2. Now, the sister Fab Aim Edits, she did this cover for me as well. All right. And why do I have it mainly in pink? Because as you can see there, the letter Hey, the feminine letter, that book talks about the feminine principle in Hebrew. Moses knew the feminine principle in Hebrew. And it's not to bring up something sad. It says, if Yah do a new thing and the earth open her mouth. You understand? It says, Watiftak haaretz et piha, and the earth, she opened her mouth. Earth is treated in the feminine in Hebrew. You don't understand Genesis 11:7, that the Most High put a difference between Mizraim, Egypt, and Israel? Egypt viewed earth as masculine, as Jeb, not as feminine as Adama. All right. Somebody wrote in Ken Khan Moray, way easier than other Afro-Asiatic languages like Arabic, Amharic, etc. Only 22 letters. I believe Arabic, correct me if I'm wrong, has 28 letters. I could be wrong though. And as far as Amharic, yeah, that look hard. But I'm not going to, try to deter anyone from wanting to learn it. But yes, Hebrew is easy. You understand? So just want to point that out. Okay, now, brothers and sisters, Hebrew is Easy, Volume 1. Hebrew basis from Aleph to Shamar. So Aleph is the first letter. Shamar is a verb. And in this book, I go over that particular aspect, if we will. All right, so those who are interested. Now, I want to, as we talked about this here, this book and this book, each of them online on Amazon is $15 each. All right. This book here, brothers and sisters, is also $15 from Assyria to America Part 2. And all of this is on Amazon, by the way. All right. These Hebrew books, Volume 6, Volume 5. All right. Volume 4, Volume 3. That's the book I mentioned the brother Moray Yiftach Ben Dan in. He's mentioned in this book, as well as the brother Zion Lex. He's mentioned in this book, Hebrew is Easy, Volume 3 as well. All right. Why do I do that? Because you got to pick your teacher. There's a lot of Hebrew teachers. There's a lot of scholars. There's a lot of historians. Pick whoever fits in with your spirit. Nobody should feel a way about that. It's what it is. You understand? And so, brothers and sisters, let us continue on with this, right? Here we got Deuteronomy 28:15-68, and Egypt talking writing, going over. Then we got these books here. The 12 tribes in derision from Assyria to America. Those books are available. Be right back. Sorry about that. Shalom. All right, somebody wrote in Amharic / Geese alphabet has 100 plus characters, 5 to 7 vowel variations per character. Now that's serious. All right, that's serious right there. All right, thank you for that. These books here, oh, the brother, Chief Natalie Dan from DCB, he made this cover and this cover. He actually made both of these covers. All right, so these books here are $15 each on Amazon. And these books here are $15 each on Amazon. And Chief Natalie Dan, he made both of these covers as well. All right. Here we have Deuteronomy 28, 15 to 68. This is the ebook. All right. This book here is, if you are able to get on Amazon and get an ebook, this book here is free. All right. Of all the books, I put this one up there as free as like a sample for those who care to sit there and read it. And this one here from Averista, Alabama is, brothers and sisters, part of this book here, From Assyria to America. But it's more detailed in the ebook than it is in the book here. So you can have the choice. The ebook here that you see from Averista, Alabama is $5 online. And the brother, again, Chief Naftali Dan, he's the one who did this cover here. All right, from Averis. You see Yisrael there, them working with the Tuma Rekmare, and in Alabama, and Israel inside of Egyptian. So just wanted to point that out. This cover here, Deuteronomy 28, as you see with the green background with the slave ship, that was made by a brother named Zebulun Hedekiah Lewi. All right, another brother that I know and have respect for. So I just wanted to give a shout out to the people who actually respected me enough in business to do the covers for me. Oh, by the way, this one right here was also made by Chief Naftali Dan. So, brothers and sisters, the one dedicated to my mother, as we see here. All right, so the history books are $15 each. The Hebrew books are $8 each. All right, instead of $10 each. All right, so for reason and purposes. Okay. Push the Israelites further into. So, brothers and sisters, all right, let us continue and close out. Sorry about that. All right, thank you for listening to this part of the presentation. We want to respectfully take advantage of this month, Black History Month, and go in and explain what and why we say what we say as Israelites. Shalom. And that ends this particular part. But as you can see, next time we got from slide 37 to slide 59. Tune in tomorrow night. We're going to do this at 9 p.m. 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on this channel, and we're going to conclude from slide 37 on. I try not to go over an hour and a half in doing a presentation. My Cash App is $Frankson1. $FrankSSON1. All right. For those who care to either buy the book directly from me, you can do it that way and then text and we'll work it out from that particular point. Or the PayPal, for those who desire that way, is hkashub@yahoo.com. HKASHUB@yahoo.com. My website is danitepublications.com. DANITE publications.com. Subscribe to the channel. Thank you. Have a good week. And my contact number right here, brothers and sisters, all right, is 908-587-4841 for those who are interested. All right, 908-587-4841. So Thank you to the people who have subscribed to the channel, who share the video. I definitely do appreciate it. I'm open for constructive criticism. If you have the spirit to click a dislike on a video, I ask you to explain why you dislike it. So maybe I can stand to be corrected, such as life. You understand? And so, all right, again, the Cash App, $ Frank Son 1, $FrankSson, the number 1. All right. You can call or text me at 908-587-4841. Have a good week. Again, Creator bless you. Most High protect you. I do not claim to know everything, and I'm open to constructive criticism. The next intended teaching is intended for tomorrow night. All right, at 9 p.m. on this particular channel. I am not going to advertise the book on the Shabbat. There's just certain things you just don't do. You understand, Israel? All right. So for those who are interested, you can get it. All right. In regards with the book. So with that, shalom. Most High bless. You have a good night. All righty. See you hopefully tomorrow night on this channel. And we're going to continue with these slides and reaching out to our people in the love of history. Shalom. Most High bless.